A new question that we've been receiving recently is pertaining to the crucifixion of Jesus. The problem arises is that many times we've mentioned that Jesus might have been put up on the cross and it could have been somebody else in his place. Now the problem occurs where it is also seen or understood many times that Maryam, his mother, was there. Surely somebody's mother would know if that's their son up there. Brother Shabir, do you have something to say about this?
Yes, the recent depictions of the gospel story in Mel Gibson's movie, for example, The Passion, and in some other movies, would have it that Mary was there at the foot of the cross, and certainly she would know if that was her son or not. However, this was not the earliest historical recollection of what happened. In fact, the earliest of the 4 Gospels we have in our Bibles today is the Gospel according to Mark. And Mark and the other synoptic Gospels do not have Mary so close to the scene. In fact, in the Gospel according to Mark, the female disciples of Jesus were looking from afar. And there's no mention of Mary, the mother of Jesus, in that scene. It is the later Gospels that see the need to bring Mary very close. The Gospel according to John, for example, the last of the 4 Gospels to be written, is the one that brings Mary right up to the scene at the foot of the cross, so that Jesus could say to the beloved disciple, "Behold your mother," and say to the mother, "Behold your son." So he makes the beloved disciple now the adopted son of Mary, to look after Mary. But this, of course, as you can see, is a later emphasis. It was not the original historical recollection of what actually happened at the scene of the cross. Now, the Gospels go on to describe how, in fact, Jesus appeared to his disciples after this crucifixion event, so that they could be satisfied that even though he had died, he has now come back to life, and they can see him. But interestingly enough, when Jesus appears to his disciples, they hardly recognize him. And this is a recurring theme in the Gospels. For example, in the Gospel of Matthew, in chapter 28, verse number 17, it says that when Jesus appeared to his disciples on the mountain, they saw him and they worshipped him, but some doubted. Now, one translation reads, and this is more accurate actually, that they doubted, meaning that the disciples themselves doubted. And James Dunn, in his recent book, Jesus Remembered, he emphasizes this, that there is something very unique about the way this is referred to. It says that there is a doubt every time they see Jesus. There is some kind of misgiving here. That the disciples, not just some disciples, they all seem to have this doubt, the way it is depicted in the story. Now, the Gospel according to Luke as well is trying to remove that doubt, to show that somehow they overcame that doubt. But by mentioning that in the first place, it alerts us to a question. Why are they doubting that they actually saw Jesus? If they had known Jesus for so many years, followed him, walked with him, and so on, and they were sure now that he had been crucified, when they see him again, they should run to embrace him. They should be so happy that they're seeing him. There's no need to be afraid of him, because Jesus is not a malignant individual. He is their beloved teacher. Why are they afraid of him? Why do they seem not to recognize him? Why is it that when they want to recognize him, he has to show them his hands and his feet, as though he's showing them the marks of crucifixion, that he was really crucified? That is not what they doubted, was it? But they're apparently doubting that this is the real Jesus here. Moreover, in the Gospel according to John, again, Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene, and women are very keen and very discerning of the differences between one person's voice and another. And yet when Jesus speaks to Mary initially, she doesn't recognize him from his voice. If she even turned and looked at him, and she thought that he was the gardener, according to John's Gospel in chapter number 20. So why this doubt? Chapter number 21 in John's Gospel has a curious reference. It says that when Jesus appeared to his disciples on the seashore, and he cooked a meal for them, they sat and ate the meal with them, and none dared to ask him who he was, because they were sure it was the Lord. Now, what does it mean, none dared to ask him who he was? Well, is it because they were thinking we ought to have asked him? We should have asked him, who is he? Is it because they didn't quite recognize him? And that obviously is so. So the Muslim idea that someone else was put on the cross is not as initially as far-fetched as it might seem. It may actually go back to some of the earliest historical recollections where there was some doubt as to who exactly was crucified. And the Quran puts it nicely by saying that they killed him not, nor crucified him, but it so appeared to them. Now, what exactly is the meaning of that? We cannot be entirely sure, except to say that what the Quranic emphasis here is that the enemies did not succeed in their plot to crucify Jesus, but God raised him to himself.
Thank you, Brother Shabir.